yourself to the members of the jury.
I'm Dr. Robert Quinn.
Why are you here today, Dr. Quincy?
I'm here to testify about the autopsy I performed on the victim in this case, Miss Parker Page.
Do you have any education that's relevant to this autopsy?
I do. In 1990, I earned my BS in Biomedical Sciences from The Ohio State University. I then went on to earn my MD from the University of Virginia School of Medicine.
And what do you do for a living?
For the past 5 years, I've been the medical examiner of Breckinridge County right here in the state of Midlands.
In preparation for today's case, were you given any materials to review?
I was given the body of Parker Page as well as her medical records. I received 3 items from Detective Chesney, such as the hiking staff, a shovel, and a knife. And I also went out to the campgrounds itself to gather data on the actual campground.
Did this provide you with sufficient facts and data to come to your conclusion today?
Yes, it did.
Did you apply any particular method for today's case?
Yes, I applied what we forensic pathologists call the MET method.
What is the MET method?
MET stands for Medical Records, Examination, and Time of Death. I examine the medical records to sort of get a background on the patient that I'm examining. I then move on to the examination, and I look at the bruises and any fractures inside the body to sort of get a better picture of what actually happened on the day in question. And then I try to determine the time of death using a formula as well as rigor mortis and liver mortis of the body.
Is that formula standard in your field?
Yes, it is. It's considered the gold standard used by many forensic pathologists.
And is your method standard in your field?
Yes, it is as well. Gold standard.
And did you reliably apply this to today's case?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any relevant peer-reviewed journal articles to today's case?
Yes, I've written many peer-reviewed articles about rare bone diseases. The one most closely relating to this case is called Why Hips Don't Lie, as it relates to rare bone diseases such as osteogenesis imperfecta.
Now I want to start going through the MET method. What exactly is Parker Page's medical history?
Parker Page has a history of being diagnosed with not only asthma, but a bone disease known as osteogenesis imperfecta.
What exactly is osteogenesis imperfecta?
This is simply when a patient's bones don't form correctly. This can cause a weakening of the bone structure, especially around the rib cage, which can cause severe breathing problems. And this disease is also known to cause severe bruising in the victim, even at a slight force.
What exactly would osteogenesis imperfecta mean for Parker Page?
For Parker Page, it would make her more susceptible to bruising, and it would make her rib cage weaker and quite possibly give her severe lung problems.
Now I want to move on to your examination that you did. How did you break that down?
I started by examining the bruises on Parker Page's body, and I then moved to an internal examination to note her fractures.
Did you bring anything with you to display for the members of the jury this examination process?
Yes, I brought a display board which has a markup of all the bruises and fractures on where Parker Page's body would be.
May my witness step down to make use of a demonstrative?
You may.
What exactly are we looking at here, Dr. Quincy?
Well, here we can see the numbers denoting the number of fractures and bruises, the red circles being the bruises, and the dashes here being fractures of the bone structure.
So, could you walk us through that external examination and your findings?
Yes, as you can see, here on the right side of the body is where most of the bruises and fractures occurred, which is why it's most interesting that there is a lone bruise over here on her left clavicle.
Why did you find that bruise so interesting?
Well, besides being the lone bruise over here, I also noted the shape and coloration of the bruise as different from the others. This bruise was more of a half-moon shape, which indicates downward force from above.
Were you ever able to determine a cause for this bruise?
Yes, when I was given the hiking staff by Detective Chesney, I noted that it had the same dimensions, 1.125 centimeters by 2.25 centimeters, as this bruise right here, and it even matched the shape.
Now moving on to that internal examination, what were your findings there?
The most interesting thing I found in my internal examination was this fracture right here, as it coincides to be directly underneath this bruise.
Were you ever able to determine a cause for that fracture?
Given that it's directly underneath, the most likely cause is that it was caused by the same force that created this bruise, namely that hiking staff.
Thank you, Dr. Quincy. May my witness take a stand?
Sure.
Now I want to move on to your time of death. How exactly did you determine Parker's time of death?
I determined Parker's time of death by taking the average body temperature of a human body, 9.86 degrees Fahrenheit, and subtracting it by the temperature I determined Parker Page's body to be when I received the body, 68.6 degrees Fahrenheit. I then divided that by 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the average rate of heat loss for a body. Came out to about 20 hours the body had been dead for.
And what is that time in standard format?
That would be about between 4 and 6 p.m.
Were you ever able to determine a cause for Parker Page's death?
Yes, I found that the cause of Parker Page's death was actually severe blunt force trauma to the head region.
Finally, Dr. Quincy, what is your overall conclusion on today's case?
My overall conclusion for today's case is that Parker Page sustained a 40-foot fall which killed her through blunt force trauma to the head, but that fall was started by a downward strike by a hiking staff to her clavicle.
Thank you, Dr. Quincy. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Would opposing counsel like me to deconstruct the demonstrative?
No, you can leave it up. Dr. Quincy, you stated on direct that you're aware that Parker has OI.
I am, yes.
You stated that people with OI have severe lung problems,
Yes, they do.
that they can bruise easily even with slight pressure.
Yep.
Yet you ruled out all accidental causes of death because of that one bruise.
Yes, I did.
And you said that it was most likely that that bruise was matched to that hiking staff you found.
It perfectly matched that hiking staff I found.
You said it was most likely that the fracture was caused by that hiking staff.
Yes, given its orientation directly underneath that bruise.
But you would agree with me that most likely is not to a degree of scientific certainty.
I would say I can to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, I can conclude that that was the cause of the fracture.
And you did not account for Parker Page's OI when determining the cause of death and the manner of death, did you?
I did account for that. That's why I believe the bruising and the fracture were caused by the hiking staff.
So you accounted for Parker Page's OI when it came to the bruise itself?
What she was diagnosed with, OI type 1, yes.
You factored in OI when you came to the determination of the bruise itself?
I did, yes.
But you stated that you only relied on the color of the bruise to determine that it was caused ante-mortem or before death.
I relied on several things, the color of the bruise being one of them, yes.
That was the primary reason you felt Parker Page had sustained that bruise before death.
Yes, that's true.
However, you're aware that that is not the best practice in your field.
I'm aware that others don't consider that the best practice in my field. That's true.
You're aware that most experts like yourself consider the shape and size of the bruise instead.
Yes, that's correct.
And you determined that the manner of death was a homicide prior to receiving that hiking staff.
I decided it was possible prior to receiving that hiking staff.
And you were only given 3 objects to examine to match to that bruise.
Yes, that was all I needed.
And this was 4 days after your initial examination.
Yes, that's correct.
And again, no forensic evidence was found on that hiking staff.
Not
To
my
your knowledge.
Not to my knowledge.
So, to your knowledge, there is no link between that hiking staff and Mr. Ryder.
I couldn't tell you if there was, but to my knowledge, doesn't seem to be.
And yet, to your conclusion, you can say with a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that somehow Mr. Ryder, with a downward angle, used that hiking staff to push Parker Page off of a cliff.
I don't believe I ever said it was Mr. Ryder, but I do believe it was the hiking staff that pushed her.
But you found no other evidence except for that bruise that caused you to believe that the manner of death was homicide.
That's correct. I found the bruise sufficient to rule this a homicide.
Again, this was the only piece of evidence you used to determine your conclusion in today's case.
That along with the fracture and the dimensions of the bruise, yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any redirect?
No redirect at this time, I just requested my witness be allowed to sit down.
Redacted.
And at this time, the state rests its case in chief and requests a brief 5-minute
Yeah.
recess.
Can we do a 2-minute break?
Yeah. Extra short.
So now do I put it back at 25?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's why I said
Totally. Oh, the car I wrecked? Yeah. That one.
No, I was referring to the other part.
Ran a rental car into a pole the other day.
Nice.
Oh.
And by the other day, I mean last night.
All right, well, I promise if anyone stands up and tries to close, then we can walk out.
No, if you guys want to do a closing.
No, so the girl that does our prosecution open, you know, that's health problems, she's a little behind, and Cam, the guy that does our prosecution closes, done March. So those are probably like, they either have a great excuse or they don't need the practice.
Yeah.
So.
I had the same boat. I can't.
You need to avoid this.
Jacqueline, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Just like for today. Just in general. Okay. It's just that.
Honestly,
Yes, it's so
We
cold.
did that because others were like walking out of the room, so we thought you guys wanted it cooler.
No, yeah,
I
we
do
were
do
like
it the other way,
sweating
too, like,
earlier.
we thought that's what you guys wanted.
No, it was. We were sweating. I don't think there's that.
answer.
There's no happy. There's no happy spot.
It's just a spectrum of two ends, but no middle.
Okay. Okay. I thought you were getting sick too. It's like, oh god.
No.
Just another hike.
Honestly, I'm fine with that. I haven't got sick in like the last 2 years.
Oh, I'm jealous. I never get sick. I'm so pissed.
So I'm
when I
fine.
do
Like
it.
it is, I've tempted fate so many times. At this stage that I'm like, fuck it.
I started so fun that I thought they were
typing
probably
it.
due.
Yeah.
I started typing the text to this,
Have the sticks happen.
Wait, what were you typing?
the text to Devin saying, hey Devin.
I once took in a straw.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Thinking it was the.
Is that the first prosecution Remy we faced?
So he doesn't know that.
That's definitely the first prosecution
Yeah,
Remy.
it's been a while.
No, prosecution Remy. Did you not turn
Okay,
that?
the minute this round gets done, pack it up, get in the cars,
Go
and we
home.
can go.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
No.
It's debatable.
How dare you?
Do it in the
You're
car.
being in the car.
Do it in the car. Inside.
Okay, well, let's take
Let's
it
go
back.
through
We've already done enough damage to the rental car. Let's not pee in it, please.
Wait, you've done that. Yeah, you know it personally. Don't drag me into this.
Turn the heat off.
If I throw up in it, then we can.
We just turned
You
it
guys,
back
are
on.
you guys
Oh,
cold?
okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
It was definitely hot before, but I feel like you overshot the mark.
No,
Yeah,
we
definitely.
Every
We're
time.
just
It's
doing it right now.
Maybe that's why it was like.
We're down to 61 degrees.
That's fine.
Was that a 61?
I'm sorry.
That'll wake you up.
I like first.
You tried, it's okay.
We started at 81 degrees, so.
Yeah.
I like that we didn't think 70. We just went straight
Right,
61.
yeah. My bad.
81 is too hot. What do you want?
Y'all
Freeze
said
it.
there is
It was really hot.
trying to get
We appreciate the efforts.
Make the air ice.
This is gonna
Are both sides ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
State, defense?
Defense calls,
Oh, wait.
Sorry, just brief moment.
oh, sure, sorry.
Cameron Lee's over there.
Rodriguez, I almost said over, sorry.
Do it. Do it. Call the Romeo. You
You
won't.
can call the witness, don't start yet.
Call Romeo.
Don't start yet.
Oh, okay. Wait, state defense calls Armani Rodriguez.
State defense. Loyal.
Mr. Ryder's paying a lot of money for your defense right now.
The prosecution looks almost prepared.
No, he's not.
Good? Okay.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. Promise Ryder's me.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Hi, my name is Almani Rodriguez.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from the land down under, as you Americans would call it, but I moved to the States when I was just a kid, and my mum settled us down in the Sierra Nevada mountains, and I've lived here ever since.
What do you do for a living?
Right now, I'm the owner of Corkins Campground. Before that, I was a big-time corporate lawyer. That life wasn't for me, so I bought a campground out in Midlands and poured all my money and passion into that.
What inspired you to make such a big change?
I got to be honest, I really connect with nature, and I really wanted to sort of escape the concrete jungle and head back to the real one. So that's why I decided to open a campground.
Why are you here for today's case?
Well, I would imagine it's because of what happened that weekend that Parker Page died.
Were you at Hopkins Campground that weekend?
Oh, of course, I never leave.
What, did you meet Mr. Ryder or Parker that weekend?
Yeah, I did. They checked in around noon that Saturday the 14th and rented Campsite 12 for 2 nights. It's really chill out at Campsite 12, good vibes all around.
Would it be correct then if I wrote 12 o'clock, Jordan and Parker check-in?
Yeah.
What was your next interaction with Jordan and Parker?
Well, I was making my sort of rounds around all the campsites just to make sure that everyone had settled in. And I saw them around 3 o'clock heading towards the Leghorn Loop. I had recommended it to them earlier in the day, so I was excited they took my suggestion.
Could you tell us more about what the Leghorn Loop is?
Yeah, for sure. So it's, sort of what put Corkins on the map. It's, people come from all around to try out the thrilling loop. I wouldn't say it's super dangerous, just a little more difficult than all the ones that we have here at Corkins. But if you're if you're up for the challenge, it's got an amazing, view of over the edge of all of Corkins.
Would you recognize a map of Hopkins Campgrounds if we showed you one today?
Absolutely.
Approaching opposing counsel with Exhibit 23.
Same courtesy copy for your honor.
Could you please tell me what I just handed you?
This is a map of my campground.
Is it a fair and accurate copy?
Yeah.
Your Honor, at this point we have Exhibit 23 in evidence.
Without objection, Your Honor.
We also ask permission to publish an enlarged version to the jury.
That's fine too, Your Honor.
Ms. Rodriguez, permission for the witness to step down to make use of the demonstrative. Ms. Rodriguez, could you please point out on this map where the Leghorn Loop is?
Yes, so this is the Leghorn Loop here. It's the longest loop that we have here at Corkins. It's right underneath here up the lake and right above the musky pond.
And when did you see Mr. Ryder and Parker heading towards the Leghorn Loop?
Right, I saw them heading out from campsite 12 to the Leghorn Loop at 3 p.m. They were heading towards the trailhead, which is right here. This is the trailhead.
So would it be correct if I wrote 3 o'clock, Jordan and Parker head towards Leghorn Loop?
Yeah.
When was the next time that you saw Jordan and Parker?
So later on, I was again doing some rounds just to make sure that everyone was alright. And, you know, I heard a little scream coming from the trail, so I scurried a ways up just to make sure that everything was okay. And I saw them just a few minutes up the trail at 4:45.
And could you show us where on the trail you saw Jordan and Parker?
Yeah, sure. So I saw them right about here. And when I got up there, you know, I asked what was wrong, but they just explained that Parker had seen the little fox. And you know, they're all over Calkins, but they've been there longer than I have, and I don't have the heart to relocate them.
And what time was that conversation with Jordan and Parker on the Lacron Loop?
That was at 4:45.
So it would be correct if I wrote 4:45, Jordan and Parker on the Lacron Loop?
Yeah.
What happened after that conversation?
Well, so then I headed back down, went back to my campsite, and I didn't do another round until closer to dinner time. I started at around 6, but I got to campsite 12 at 6:30 around.
And could you point out again for us where campsite 12 is on this map?
Yeah, campsite 12 is right here.
And what did you find when you got there?
When I got there, Jordan was there, and you know, had told me that Parker had gone out to take some pictures of the sunset, and you know, it made me so excited to
Objection,
see that.
Your Honor, to hearsay. May I explain?
You may.
Statements by Jordan Ryder saying that Parker is in fact going out to take pictures of the sunset are hearsay because they're out-of-court statements being used for the truth of the matter asserted.
What's the statement you're objecting to?
That Jordan said that Parker was going out to take pictures at around 4:40.
Okay, response.
Your Honor, these are definitionally not hearsay because they are not being used for the truth of the matter asserted. We have no interest in whether or not Parker was in fact taking pictures of the sunset at this time. It's simply going to prove this, to show the subsequent action of Ms. Rodriguez and how that conversation continued with Mr. Ryder.
What's the subsequent action specifically?
The subsequent action is whether or not Ms. Rodriguez did see Parker there and the conversation that followed with Mr. Ryder.
Response.
Your Honor, these statements aren't necessary for Ms. Rodriguez to determine whether Parker was there or not, but they are being used for the truth of the matter asserted, because this is Jordan saying that Parker, in fact, left from camp instead of our contention, which is that Jordan pushed Parker off of the cliff.
Yeah, what is the necessity of the specific statement, and is it possible for you to convey that subsequent action without invoking the statement itself?
Well, we can, Your Honor, and we would be amenable to doing that, but we do still hold that the statement is not being used for the
Okay,
truth of the
well
matter
then, yeah, I mean, if you could do it that way, that's the safe way to do it. So,
Yes.
so I'm gonna sustain on the hearsay to the extent that it came out. If you can get the same information otherwise, I'd ask you that you do it that way.
Motion to strike, Your Honor.
Yeah, to the extent that it came out, it's straight.
Yes, Your Honor. What happened when you got to campsite 12?
Well, I saw that Jordan was there, and I didn't see Parker, so I figured she had to be out exploring nature, or, you know, looking at the beautiful sunset off the loop or something like that. And, you know, it made me so excited and so happy to see the little ankle rider, you know, out exploring nature.
Ms. Rodriguez, did you have any interactions with the police the day after this happened?
Yeah, a detective came to my cabin and showed me a picture of Parker. So I took him straight to campsite 12.
And what happened next?
The detective woke up the defendant, Jordan, and you know, he seemed a little strange, but I think it was just because he woke up.
Do you know where Parker's body was found that day?
Unfortunately, I do. She was found right off the spur in a ravine, right here.
Now, Ms. Rodriguez, could you please tell us how long it would have taken for Parker to get from this dot, where she was at 4:45, to this dot?
Well, honestly, mate, there's no way that it could have taken any less than 2 hours.
Objection, Your Honor, as to speculation. May I explain?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Response.
Your Honor, Ms. Rodriguez is the owner of the campgrounds. She has extensive knowledge of the campgrounds, so she knows how long it takes to get from this spot on the map to this spot on the
Okay,
map.
so I don't doubt the first few things that you said, but I don't think she's actually explained how she knows that. I mean, I think it might be presumed if she owns the campground, but that specific foundation hasn't been laid.
We can lay that foundation.
So I'm going to say if you can do that for her.
Yes,
Ms. Rodriguez, how frequently do you hike the Lacron Loop?
Oh, I hike it at least 4 or 5 times a week. Just want to make sure that, you know, everything's, you know, all right.
So how long would it take for somebody to get from here to here on the Lacron Loop?
Objection, Your
say-
Honor. This question still calls for speculation. May I explain?
Sure.
Now, it might take Miss Rodriguez or another hiker a certain amount of time to get from point A to point B. However, Miss Rodriguez can't speak to how long it takes Jordan and how long it might take Parker to get from point A to point B. And because of that, Your Honor, this is still speculation.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Sure.
The question I just asked is how long would it take someone to get from here to here on the map? I did not ask her to go into specifics about any of the individual people in today's case.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Sure.
That someone is going to be then used, we have good faith belief, it will be used to assert that Jordan and Parker could not have made it there in that amount of time. And because of that, Your Honor, this is still speculation.
The easy way to solve this is just ask the witness how long it takes her.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Rodriguez, how long would it take you to get from this point to this point on the map?
Objection to relevance, Your Honor? Okay.
Right, so I'm a pretty experienced hiker, obviously. You know, I hike all my trails all the time. And, you know, from here, where I saw Parker at 4:45 up to the spur, it would take me at least 2 hours. I mean, as you can see, it rapidly starts to incline as you get closer to the spur. And even though it's not, you know, the most difficult for me, it still takes a while.
So what's the earliest you could have gotten to this spot if you started here at 4:45?
Oh, no earlier than 6:40.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor. Would opposing counsel like me to leave out the nuance or maybe deconstruct?
Deconstruct. Cross-examination, Your Honor?
Yes.
But before I begin, may I construct a demonstration?
Sure.
Do you care if I just use your map?
Oh, not at all.
Good afternoon, Ms. Rodriguez. My name is Jordan, and I'm just going to be asking you a few questions on behalf of the state, okay?
Okay.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about your campground itself. You would agree with me that campsites 1 through 11 are kind of close together, right?
Yeah.
You advertise campsite 12 as being secluded, correct?
Yeah, like I said, it's really chill out there, you know, nice for people who just sort of want to get away from that big city life.
It's the most furthest away from all the other campsites, correct?
Yeah.
And you let everybody know that comes through that wants to rent campsite 12 that it is secluded, correct?
Absolutely.
And in fact, you told Miss Ryder that, correct?
Yeah.
And after you told that to Miss Ryder said, perfect, that sounds dangerous, correct?
Yeah, it seemed like they wanted an adventure.
And so you started ringing up Miss Ryder for campsite 12, correct?
Yeah.
And you told Miss Ryder that she needed to have, that she needed to sign a liability waiver, correct?
I did.
And you told Miss Ryder that she needed a license to do that, right?
Yeah.
She needed some kind of way to identify herself as Miss Ryder to sign that, correct?
Yep, standard policy.
And after you told her that, Miss Ryder said, I don't have my ID on me, correct?
Yeah.
And then you told Miss Ryder that she couldn't sign up for the campsite 12 unless she did have that identification, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
And immediately after you told her that, she had her ID in her right hand, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think too much of it. I mean, a lot of interesting people come through my campground. Didn't think too much of it.
Right, you didn't think too much of it, but this was the first suspicious interaction you had with Miss Ryder, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. It's more prejudicial than probative.
As to what specifically?
As to the statement for suspicious interaction.
Response.
Your Honor, the probative value is that this is one witness that interacted with Miss Ryder throughout the day and thought that Mr. Ryder's activities were suspicious, and therefore it's probative value.
Yeah, he left room for the witness to disagree, so I'll let the questions.
Yes, sir.
And that was the first suspicious interaction that you had with Mr. Ryder, correct?
I mean, I wouldn't say that every time I interacted with Jordan he was suspicious. No, he was really friendly.
So your testimony today that was not a suspicious interaction with Mr. Ryder?
No, that's not what I said. I just said I didn't have a lot of suspicious interactions with him.
But just to be clear for the jury, that was suspicious, correct?
Yeah, it was a little suspicious.
So then you talked with Mr. Ryder around 4:30 p.m., correct?
Yeah.
And you saw Mr. Ryder while Mr. Ryder and Parker were hiking, correct?
Yeah, that was at 4:45 when I had gone up the trail.
Right, and you heard a scream, correct?
Yeah, I heard the scream earlier.
And so you ran up the trail, right?
Yeah.
And you saw Mr. Ryder and Parker, correct?
I did.
Parker was sitting, right?
Yeah.
And Mr. Ryder was standing over Parker, correct?
Yeah.
And subsequently after, you saw Mr. Ryder again at 6:30, right?
That's true.
And you mentioned on direct examination that you asked Mr. Ryder where Parker was, correct?
Yeah.
And Mr. Ryder said, don't worry, she's perfectly safe. She's sitting in the tent, right?
Yep.
And then you saw in the tent, didn't you?
Yeah.
Parker wasn't in the tent, was she?
No.
So then you asked again, where's Parker?
Yep.
And that's when Mr. Ryder changed his story and said, Parker must be out taking pictures, correct?
Yeah, like I said, it made me so excited to see, sort of getting into nature. It's not all too frequently that, kids get into that stuff anymore.
And that was yet another suspicious interaction that you had with Mr. Ryder, correct?
It was a little weird.
Are you testifying it's weird or that it's suspicious?
I mean, those words pretty much mean the same thing to me, mate. I don't know.
And then you talked to, around 5:30 a.m. you went on a hike for yourself, correct?
Yeah.
And you walked by campsite 12, right?
I'm sorry, are you talking about in the morning?
Correct.
I didn't
5:30.
walk. No.
Well, you saw that there was nobody parked at campsite 12, correct?
I didn't have a great view, so I can't say for sure.
But from what you could see, you couldn't see any truck there, right?
Right, like I said, I didn't have a great view.
And the next day, the detectives came to you, correct?
Yep.
You showed them to campsite 12, right?
Yep.
And you saw Jordan sleeping in the tent, right?
I did.
The detectives told you that Jordan Ryder's daughter was missing, correct?
Yep.
And here was Jordan asleep in the tent while his daughter was missing, right?
Yeah.
And when Jordan woke up, Jordan said Parker must have gone on a hike, correct?
Yeah.
But you also found this suspicious because, again, you didn't see Jordan's truck, correct?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't be sure if the truck was there or not, but yeah, at the time I didn't really know what to think of it.
Thank you. At this time, I have no further questions.
Nothing further, Your Honor. I just asked my witness to be able to step down.
You're excused. Does remaining defense counsel have another witness?
Yes, Your Honor, defense calls Dr. Lopez to the stand. Please introduce yourself to the court.
Good afternoon, my name is Dr. Elena Lopez.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I currently work as a forensic pathologist. I actually own and operate my own private consulting firm called Forensic Pathology Experts, LLC.
What type of education do you need to do that kind of work?
Well, I received my bachelor's degree in biomedical and health sciences from Purdue University. Then I went on to receive my medical degree from Emory University School of Medicine.
And what is forensic psychology? Or pathology?
Well, essentially, forensic pathology is the examination of persons who die suddenly, unexpectedly, or in even some cases violently. It's the job of a forensic pathologist like myself to determine two main things in a case: time and manner of death.
And did you determine a time and manner of death in this case?
Yes, I did.
And did you analyze anything in order to come to that determination?
Of course, I analyzed Dr. Quincy's autopsy report as it was provided to me by the state and reviewed it as it pertained to Parker's time and manner of death. Essentially, it was my job to determine the validity of Dr. Quincy's conclusions.
And did you use reliable principles and methods in order to do your analysis?
Of course, this was a standard post-autopsy review that I've obviously completed countless times in my field.
So what was your conclusion in relation to the analysis?
Well,
Objection, Your Honor. Pursuant to case law Richards versus Mississippi Barbecue, a review of an autopsy report is not enough for a expert to make any form of conclusion. It's simply just going through, there's no method that's applied, in which for an expert to make a conclusion, they must elicit a method, as well as they did not meet all prongs of 702, which is the reliability test, as well as the principles and methods for that method.
Response.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Lopez has stated that she's used the materials that were reviewed, in order to come to her analysis of the report. This is the method that she uses. She compares the materials that Dr. Quincy had access to as well as what the report required, and that is the method that she's used in other autopsies as well as in this one, and that is what she has stated onto the record.
Okay, so for prosecution counsel, would you agree that this witness has, in the foundation of the way that she reviewed the autopsy report as well as other items?
Yes.
Okay, so does that solve the Mississippi barbecue problem?
No. So the Mississippi barbecue, problem. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. It is,
It should be narrowed down.
Susie, yes, narrowed down. It's narrowed down, and in that one it says that it has to be subject to peer review, publication, a known error rate, or acceptance within the field.
I mean, it doesn't say it has to. It says those are illustrative examples of what could demonstrate reliability under 702.
Correct,
Okay?
but we have not heard any testimony as to that exact reliability.
Okay, so we're past the point of worrying about if she just reviewed the autopsy, and now you're concerned that there hasn't been sufficient foundation on the reliability prong of 702.
Correct.
Okay, response to that.
Your Honor, I would just like to clarify, opposing counsel wants a peer review of Dr. Lopez's review of Dr. Quincy's report.
We're getting very meta right now. I don't think that's exactly what is being asked for. I guess to short circuit it, do you feel that you've laid foundation to show that the principles and methods used by this doctor in her analysis, coming to her conclusions in this case, are reliable in her field, you know, amongst other medical examiners and or medical examiner consultants doing similar work?
Yes, Your Honor, due to the fact that Dr. Lopez was not asked to create her own report, she was asked to analyze a pre-existing report, and in that case she stated that this is the process that they use. They analyze the documents that the person making the report has access to and compares the findings in order to determine the validity of that report.
Okay, has she testified that anyone other